Lazy mom. I hope that's the case, but I've been told that it's not the case that Jill is going to be a defense witness. All I can say is I hope that is not true. Hey, you guys, it's Suzanne Titkemeyer, wet haired, very gross and sweaty, even after showering after the beach, because I've been burning cookies. I tried to make Christmas cookies and I made these blackened hockey pucks, but I was on the phone most of the afternoon from the time I got home from Playa Grande until now, except for I took off to eat and set my oven to hell level. I guess if I was a Karen, I could go whine to whatever manufacturer of whatever. Hey, Sue Elliott. Hey, shits and giggles, shifts and giggles. Hey, Lacy Mom. Hey, T King. Thanks, considering I'm just kind of like thrown together. I've been, my husband has got a new diet plan that consists of walking on the beach every day. So we'll see if that works for him. I just got here in time for your live stream. I hope everybody's having a great day too. Oh, hey, Lisa. It has been one hell of a day. I've been on the phone much of the afternoon with various people, including some of my friends that are not have ever never been part of the whole quiverful evangelical movement. So many people are just completely chemo sick. Kara, bless you, honey, bless you, and I hope that it goes well for you. I know what that's like. It's no fun at all. Hey, Amy. Yeah, the trial is just insane. Elena, hey. So if you don't know me, I got to do this. If you don't know me, I'm Suzanne Tidkemeyer. I wrote a column called No Longer Quivering for Pathos for nearly 10 years. If you're here and you're listening or you're watching or whatever, do the YouTubey things. I'm not going to nag you to do those things, but it'd be nice if you would hit subscribe and or you like. If you don't like it, hit a thumbs down. Hey, Ginger, it is it's been a crazy day with the Duggar trial. I am actually quite glad that I spent most of the day outside and not watching the trial. They did not call Jill Duggar Dillard today. And I'm very annoyed by that because I thought for sure that Jill was going to be a prosecution witness. Now, true, prosecution, defense, whatever, they have the right to call anybody they will or will not call. And that's really on them. But I thought for sure that Jill was going to be a witness for the prosecution. It looks like I was wrong. So maybe that's why Derick has been sitting with Anna so much. I know that he was doing that to support her, but I think they'll call Jill as a rebuttal witness. It's not too late. Amy, I hadn't thought about that. I think that might be exactly what's going on. They may use her as a rebuttal witness. Hit the like button and subscribe. Yes. I really think she'll be doing an impact statement for sentencing. That could be too. I do like the fact that Derick is set with Anna, even if he has said all those horrible things about Jim Bob, which turned out they're mostly true. I think that Anna needs support from both sides, from whoever. And I don't think she's getting it from, notice the absence of Jim Bob and Michelle from the trial. And various other people are there. My heart is breaking right now for Austin and for Joy Anna. They look like this has just been really hard for them to hear. And they're also probably hearing a lot of this for the very first time because Jim Bob has lied a lot about this. I want to direct everybody to go read Cindy Kunzman, her article she wrote about it today. She wrote her article and said, the Duggars pee on our shoes and tell us it's raining. It's an article where she pretty much breaks down everything about Duggartown. I mean, just everything. Hey, Bliss Chris, I have known Cindy for a long, long time. We work side by side, writing about Quiverful and some of the dangers of certain kinds of religions. I came to know Cindy through NLQ. We've ended up being thick as thieves. One of those things where we cry on each other's shoulders when things go haywire. We may not say anything to anybody online, but we're like, she went through some stuff in July. I went through some stuff myself in July, and we were doing some mutual crying on the shoulders then. So we really have to have those kinds of friends. So it's especially important now with Christmas, burned cookies, and lack of Christmas joy in some of us. I think the kids in Anna have been shocked by what they've seen in court. The Duggar whitewashing don't work in a court of law. Exactly, Jade lady. Those kids, young adults, will have to deal with this for the rest of their lives. I can see splits happening within the family over the next coming years. I just hope Josh is found guilty. I wanted to say something about that. I believe that Josh will be found guilty. If you've listened to any of what the testimonies have been, I don't know how you could possibly conclude that it wasn't him downloading that stuff. I mean, even Anna, who is doing the Goddard thing, where you got a Goddard thing where you were like smiling and in denial and just supporting the husband and life. She got up and ran out of the courtroom during some of the testimony about what was found and what passwords are used and all of that. And when they showed her email address and things, she was very unhappy, apparently. So I think it's even dawning on her that this is not right. This is not real. They left soon after, looking like they were crying. Yes. I saw that. They both looked like they were crying. And Josh actually leaned over and muttered a few words just before the lunch break. I saw that. Cherie, hey. So, thank you so much. Thank you. I think he's going to be convicted too. Thank you for contributing to my yarn fund. I'm thinking about going to the States and making another yarn run. Emily Baker thinks the family is really going to struggle, especially as kids. I'm sure they will struggle. Why? Well, because in the Goddard system, which, like I said, Cindy has written extensively about them, you are kept in this protected bubble. You don't go out and interact with everybody in the street. You don't talk to anybody. Everything is controlled by the father and then later the husband. What kind of music you listen to, if you even listen to the radio. Television is forbidden in a lot of these places, are very limited. So you have all that. You have this very controlling, almost C word, C-U-L-T. And when you have that kind of action going on and you have this tight little controlled bubble that's an enclosed world that the children are not only raised in, but they're now living in, particularly those that are being supported by Jim Bob Duggar, this is the first all of them likely are going to be hearing of some of this stuff. When Bobye Holt said that this had been going on for years, that Josh had confessed to doing those things to his sisters for years, it was just heartbreaking and not surprising. We see that in a lot of these quiverful families, that kind of behavior goes on for years. The family doesn't deal with it. They send them off to a Goddard type, pray the perv away thing, and it doesn't work. They end up doing more and more. The two Williams boys that were mentioned and tried to throw under the bus and say they did it, one of them was supposedly in courtship with Jana. I don't know how true that is, but here's where it gets sticky, wicked, weird. Both of those boys have gone to jail for sexual abuse. One of them for of kids. I missed everything today, just now catching up on what came out today, that he was, not just one time, for years. Yes, it came out for years. Bobye Holt said that under oath. Jim Holt said that, sure, you can post a picture. Yeah, the passwords did wake Anna up. It was a big. So anyway, the Williams brothers, they've gone to jail for the exact kind of stuff that Josh did to his sisters. So he's trying to throw it on them as being all perverted and gross because of that they were both working for him, even though neither of them was working when this all went down. I was sitting down a couple days ago, and I know you can't read any of this, but these are all the families that are surrounding the Duggars. I sat down and wrote out all the interconnections. And if you can see it, this is a giant like web of all the things going on between them. The people he was accusing of possibly being the Williams brothers, one of the fabulous David Waller's brothers. These are, okay, thanks, Amy. Those are, let me pull up my list of stuff that happened today with the trial too, because I was looking at that myself. I don't know if any of you guys watch The Sun, read The Sun. They are actually kind of trashy on a lot of things, except for, I will say this, if they are talking about the Duggars, they usually are real trashy, but the thing is they have a reporter, whoever it is, he or she, because they're every break they go file a report. Here we go. So it looked like one of the final witnesses for the prosecuting attorney was Bobye, and before her, Jim Holt. And they talked about having been interconnected with the Duggars, about how Jim Bob came to them and told them about all the things that Josh had done, but the Reader's Digest Disney version of what he'd done, not the actual real version of what it was he'd done. The defense is trying to use remote access as a reasonable doubt, but the prosecution keeps reiterating that there is no evidence of remote access. Absolutely, there is no evidence of that whatsoever. And remote access, they're acting like it's a rare thing. And the fact that they even have that is rare. It's not rare. It's pretty common in the computer world, particularly if you're using certain kinds of software, some kind of proprietary software. There are times when that stuff goes haywire and you have to enable remote access to get it fixed. I think with Mrs. Holt's testimony, Jill's isn't really necessary. Moreover, it's risky putting family on the stand. Too much emotional attachment to the matter. Very true. That is very, very true. I've had someone come to me and tell me that they thought that that Derick being there with Anna meant that Derick was like second chair or something on the defense. I don't see that at all. I mean, he may be taking notes to write a book. He's talked about that a bunch of times, but I don't think that's what that is. I think he is standing in solidarity with Anna, and you can believe that Josh is guilty as hell and needs to go to jail forever and still stand with Anna. The defense is also whining about the router. I saw that. They're making hay over the router. The router would have very little effect on whether or not he downloaded that stuff. It would not be anything that would do anything. Okay. Jill is still supposedly going to testify. I don't know how that is. James Duggar was the one, look at the trial. They had misidentified him as somebody else the other day. William Clayman is supposed to cross-examine Michelle Bush tomorrow. And she was talking about the Linux operating system that he was using on the computer to do the dual boot. Testified about torrential downpour. It is used by law enforcement. Yeah. So they're really trying to pick apart. You can read this, and they're trying to pick apart everything to do with how law enforcement gathered the information on Josh, that somebody may have hacked in, may have used remote access or gone through the router. That's very, very unlikely. You have to be able to prove those things. It takes a higher level of skill than most your average person is going to need in order to access the router to the degree that they're talking about. I think the Holt's testimonies have sealed Josh's fate, and I'm so freaking happy about it. Amanda, I am too. I never thought I would say that. I've always had a little bit of compassion for him. Not any longer, because he really, where he is now, I lay that at the feet of Michelle and Jim Bob Duggar, and also at the feet, especially of Bill Gothard. Bill Gothard is behind all this crap. He's behind the fact that Jim Bob Duggar acted like an entitled jackass when he was testifying during the motions hearings. I've seen this so many times in my old church. These guys, they think that they are all demigods. I mean, really, that's what they are all preaching and talking about, especially with that silly umbrella thing. Cindy has it up at her website. Like I said, I have that linked in the description, where you have God, father, mother, kids. When you take a man and you put him just below God, you're saying that it's okay to do all these things. And I've said before, in my old Quiverful church, I saw people that cheated. I saw people that did all kinds of horrible stuff, and they justified it by the Bible. Just reading, I read it that Justin from I Pray You Put This Journal Away. Oh, wow. Yeah. If the facts deem it unnecessary to seize the router, then it didn't need to be seized. Mrs. Bush can go kick rocks. It didn't need to be seized. I don't understand quite why they seem to think it does. And I guarantee he didn't have much of a router. He probably had just the most basic thing. And yeah, Michelle B is a psychologist, not an IT expert. Exactly. So why are they even asking her questions about IT? And some of the things they're asking about IT are kind of esoteric, that somebody, an average person, is not going to know. You know, okay. None of the Duggar kids are coming out and giving that high five that one of them came out and gave the other day, at least. Thank God they look sober and thoughtful. I'm sure their whole world has been blown up. So I don't think Michelle Bush is a very good person to be talking to about these router things and stuff. This is really not her expertise. But I think it's pretty interesting that the MacBook didn't have any of that stuff on it. She said she couldn't rule out remote access to the viewing of the CSA. I think that would be very difficult to prove. That would be, well, damn close to impossible to prove. But I think the Holts have sealed his fate. I think the stuff that they said today was, I have a feeling the defense argues disputes what Josh did to his sisters, and Jill might be called to testify. Like someone said, and a rebuttal witness. Maybe so. It's all smoke and mirrors, game defense, trying to play the jury is going to see right through it. I think so, Amanda. I think there's no getting around this. There's no blaming it on anybody else like they were trying to blame it on the Williams brothers, on Caleb, and I think it was Joshua was the other one. Don't quote me on that. But I think what's going to happen is they are going to do a smoke and mirrors thing. They're going to try to make all this seem pretty normal and natural, or unbelievable that somebody set him up, that somebody from the Biden administration set him up, even though this investigation started under the Trump administration and he was arrested under the Trump administration, not the Bidens. But I've heard that Anna is claiming the Bidens are behind it. So what is it going to take for the kids when this is all over with? I think one of the things that's going to happen for the children when this thing is all over with is there's going to have to be a whole lot of therapy. Why do I say that? Because right now, the kids that are attending, they're hearing the unvarnished truth. They're not hearing Jim Bob's, let me just do the Jim Bob's BS. They're not hearing that. They're hearing the real truth about what's happening, what happened, the evidence, what was on the computer. And I think it was rather damning that when they discussed that the torrent thing that he was using and the Tor download and all that had the same passwords as Anna and Josh's bank accounts and other things that Anna also had access to. I think that pretty much sealed it for Anna, at least. I think we're going to see her do a great falling away when that happens, when she finally decides that to rid herself of a child molester. It's going to be, excuse me, he's not a child molester, of a child CP, of a CP consumer, which I guess is kind of like a molester. Timestamps don't lie. He sealed his own case. He absolutely did. Go ahead, mention Biden. It'll make them look really like fools. Well, it made Anna look like she was very ignorant, I thought. Biden has a zillion problems to deal with other than Josh Duggar. Boys, that's the truth. I mean, I watch his press conferences sometimes and I was like, oh, I don't like this one any better than the last one or the one before that. So, late arrival. Is Jill testifying for the defense? Belinda, I'm hearing people say that. I'm seeing no evidence of that. Other people in here are suggesting that perhaps she's going to be a rebuttal witness, or perhaps she's going to speak at the sentencing guidelines, because that is where I would expect all the sisters to come forward. And we may even see Joanna speak up and say, hey, this has impacted me, X, Y, and Z. I plead for you to put my brother away for life or whatever, even though I know it's 20 years or so, I think it is. Per count is what I read. I know Emily DeBaker has a better idea about that kind of stuff than I do. Knowing how long they sent away in federal court, Jack Shope, who is one of the biggies in the IFB world, just like Bill Gothard is. He went away for 12, 13 years for what he did to a teenage girl. And this did not involve any kind of pornography or anything like that. So I think he's going to go away for a long, long time. These poor girls, especially Joanna, I think it's going to pull away along with Austin. I think Jessa left at lunch because she couldn't handle it anymore after hearing the Holt's testimony. That could well be. And I fear for Jessa as well. Right now, she's living in Daddy's pocket. She's Daddy's little princess. She always has been to a certain extent, but you can really tell by looking at the behaviors of the older Duggar daughters that she is the princess. She is the princess of the whole bunch and has been acting and living like one. And now she's having to face the awful truth that her brother, besides doing these things to her for years, that she was told that she was somehow evil for causing. And that's another thing I want to point about Gothardism that nobody is talking about, not the son, nobody. And the only person that's talking about it is Cindy Kunzman on her Under Much Grace blog. Bill Gothard teaches, even if you're a small child and you're molested or whatever, the R word happens to you, anytime a man does the SA thing to you, that you have caused it by being a strange woman, by being a Jezebel. It doesn't matter if you're a 6-month-old baby or a 60-year-old woman. If you get sexually abused in his cult, they automatically say that it is because you were seductive in some way. How many 6-month-old babies do you see act seductively? How many teenagers or even 60-year-old ladies do you see act seductively, like they want that kind of thing happen to them? Very few, and certainly nobody in that church. That's just it's not done. Jessa is stuck in the middle and always defending Jim Bob. Now, as a victim too, she is facing the cold hard facts that her father lied to her. I feel so bad for all those girls. Those wisdom booklets are horrific. Yes, they are, Amanda Page. I've written about that before. If they want to get 20 years per count and not be served concurrently, they need to show his behavior is escalated. So Josh needs to be serving his sentence non-concurrently, so no early release. I absolutely agree with that. And here's the other thing with what Josh has done. And I know this because of statistics that have crossed my desk, things I've seen, heard happen when I was working at the Children's Residential Center, where, by the way, we had children who had been used in those types of films and photographs. And I cannot tell you the psychic damage that does to the kids, much less the physical damage. Many times had to escort a child to get corrective surgery because of something that happened to them during the filming of those things. So many mothers hooked on crack or whatever were selling their children into this. They were trafficking their children straight into the hands of the producers of the CP. It's not uncommon. They have to realize also their dad has lied to them all these years. Not only the fact that their brother and their so-called loving father covered it all up. Exactly. And the judge may do that, Amanda, because with the Jack Shope case, what happened was he took a plea deal. He pled guilty for a reduced sentence of 10 years. The judge took one look at that 10-year sentence and said, oh, no. You could have gotten a lot more time than that. Was said 10 years is not adequate because what he did, where he violated the sacred duty he owes as a minister, he was treating the girl for SA, and he started having an affair with her. So what the federal judge did is he said that the 10-year plea agreement was out the window, and he was giving him like 13 years. So he didn't give him a lot more years, but he gave him enough to realize he did it to his sisters for many years. What makes you think he didn't do anything to his 6 children, that he had access to whatever he wanted? Melanie, that is a really, really, really good question. Here's what I want to know, and they haven't answered this. Nobody has said this. I want to know if the children underwent any kind of forensic psychological exam to determine whether they had been if they had been victimized. I can't think that they wouldn't have done that. I know the Duggars hate to have anybody talk to the children of their family. They'll routinely say no, just like they say no to any CPS workers. So I'm not sure that ever happened. But a lot of times these guys that are engaged in this stuff, they do not touch their own children for the most part. Well, why? Because their own children are people to them. And the children that they abuse or that are they're using the CP, these kids are objects that can be destroyed, objects that can be bossed around, where they can't objectify their own children. So a lot of times they're pretty safe. Yeah, I'm sure that neither one of them would. I heard that Anna refused to let CPS speak to the children too. That's the only thing I agree with Stephen Anderson about it too. It should be death penalty. Should be the sentence for child SA of any type. I absolutely agree. I'm not a big proponent of the death penalty. I'm not somebody that likes it. But if you're going to apply it to these creeps that make the CP. I would think so. I would have thought that they would have been there. Hey, Rose, is heartbreaking, wrenching. It's getting worse, I'm afraid. What the Holt said today was just completely heartbreaking when Bobby Holt explained that this had been going on for years. It wasn't just one episode of touching, that it was years and years of sexual of the abuse going on. Kids learn from day one whatever happens to them is their fault, and they're manipulated, gaslighted ever since. How could they believe what's said in court is the truth? That is a point. And I think all of them they're gonna struggle with this. Nobody wants to think that their brother was doing this to their brothers and sisters, to their sisters, and they didn't know. I'm pretty sure that each one of the victims probably thinks they were the only one that underwent years worth of this stuff. That they thought that they were the one singled out for it, and if they said anything or tried to stop it, their siblings would get hurt. Gelfand tried to say that to Bobby that Josh was a kid. Bobby said no. Yes, I heard that too. Holt pushed back of the defense. We have to understand the Holts are actually the Holts have a troubled history with Josh. It is rumored that when Josh was helping as a teenager on Jim Holt's campaign, that he was let go because he was looking at CP on the campaign computers. I don't know how true that is. That's something that's said a lot. There was a broken courtship with one of their daughters. They did talk a little bit about that. They said they had been told the Disney version of events by Jim Bob, so they would know with their daughter going in what was going on. I was SA at the age of 9 by a neighbor, and the creep went after my sisters, two sisters too. Amy, that happens. I was SA'd from the time I was 7 to 9, and I didn't realize that this creep had gone after my aunt, who was a few years older than me, just a few years, and lived with us. He had each one of us thinking that by cooperating, we were saving everybody else in the family from undergoing this. And that's really common. Now, I heard that they refused to let them too, so I'm not sure how they got away with that. I would think that the prosecution would have gotten a court order and forced it, but I haven't heard anything about that. Holt should take some responsibility for not speaking out in public when he knew there was sin in the camp. Absolutely, Belinda. Absolutely. Absolutely, he needs to take some responsibility because he enabled it by not telling. When you cover for an abuser like that, you just make it harder for everybody else. But I never did finish my thoughts on the death penalty. Here's the thing about people that are involved with CP. Or CA. They don't stop. They only escalate. Chemical castration does not work. Physical castration doesn't even work with these guys. The urge is always going to be there. They're always going to think about it. And most of the time, they're eventually going to act on it. The statistics across my desk back when I used to work at the USO said that for every one of these guys that you caught, there were as many as 250 acts that they'd participated in and not gotten caught for. And that's a staggering number when you start looking at that. This case is definitely one of the vindications, Amy. I absolutely agree with that. If the whole porn rumor was true, why wasn't it disclosed in court? I don't know, Prairie. Maybe Holt thought it was just too much. The Duggars are not going to let the public know of any investigation as long as they can keep the public full. Absolutely, they're going to play stupid every time because that's what they've been taught to do. Josh is one sick puppy, can never be rehabilitated. No, can't. He should never be allowed around children again. Anyone that watches CP to the extent he has should not be breathing. Absolutely. And it's kind of funny because Jim Bob, when he was a state senator, tried to get a law passed or talked about what he thought should happen to people that look at CP and people that touch children and that sort of thing, he called for the death penalty. I notice he's noticeably silent about his own son doing this stuff, which is pretty sad. I heard that Josh escalated after Anna had baby number 2. That's very likely. I read somewhere that one of Josh's grandfathers was a child abuser. I would not doubt that either, because Josh was looking at an adult on the Holt's computer while I was working that campaign. Yes. The public now knows, and Jim Bob's reputation is trash, and he can't talk his way out of this. I predict that he's still going to try, because from what I know about the Jim Bobs of this world, is they think that they're absolutely right, and those of us that disagree with them they think we're absolutely wrong, and we're demonic, and we're making it up to make them look bad. So they try to put the best face on every bad happening possible. I personally had an individual stick her foot unbroken. When her leg was broken. Oh my goodness. The only way to truly stop a predator is to give the death penalty. Sometimes that's it. And you're right, David Heck. The silence is deafening. Why is Jim Bob even running for another office while this is all going on? It's crazy. Sarah, I would say that too. That's not the smartest thing, but I think that he thinks that he would distract everybody away from the trial. It's like, hey, look at this bright, shiny thing over here while this is going on over there. I think that was the reason that he decided to run at this time. His and his son's political runs have not been successful, so there's no telling what's going to happen with all that. I've never heard of a person that was not working their way through all the family, especially their own kids. Could be. Do you think a little part of this stems from the way they're brought up? I think it's entirely how they were brought up. You have to lay this at the feet of Jim Bob Duggar, Michelle Duggar, and Bill Gothard, because they're handling this exactly how Bill Gothard says you have to handle it. Debbie Pearl even went and fought her and said, if your husband is convicted of this stuff, you have to stay by his side. You have to bring the kids to see him in jail. You have to welcome him back with open arms when he is released. And I think that is a big pile of baloney. I'm just going to come out and say that. I hope that he hasn't. My granny used to say abusers should be hung, but not by their neck. That's actually a pretty decent one. What is going on here? Jim Bob's reputation will survive this because they're surrounded by predators and evildoers who are supported. Fundies love a redemption story. That is very true. And then what they'll do is they will just circle the wagons. They circle the wagons. They pretend this hasn't happened. They go underground for a little while, and then they come out again. When they think that nobody else is looking, they will come out and start this crap all over again. Jim Bob and Michelle over-sexualize everything, so this starts his sickness. Toss in Gothard and ew. Yes. Does anybody remember the episode of 19 Kids and Counting where Michelle was getting ready to do a little mini golf, and Jim Bob came up behind her and was rubbing on her butt on the camera in front of everybody, in front of the kids? I couldn't believe he was doing that. Pure narcissism, yes. I think so. Yeah, apple doesn't far from the tree. Jim Bob the tree, Josh the apple. The putt golf. That is exactly right, Amy. That episode is just like, oh, cringe. I can't watch. If Josh Duggar is not found guilty, I will be physically sick. You will not be the only one, the lone wanderer. Spelled it right. That's fine. I'm glad to see you here. I think if they don't convict him, there are going to be a lot of super angry people all over the world right now because everybody is looking at this going, this is not right. It is just not right. Dry humping. Yeah, that's what he was doing. I wasn't going to say it, but that's exactly what he was doing in front of the kids. Renell Smith did a wonderful video calling out, yeah, Roach coverage and behavior, the Roach Roach. So I like to call her, besides without a box of Kleenex. And I'm sure she's going to go on tonight with a long, long, long video. She's going to talk about what happened. She's going to talk about the specific video. She's going to talk about the pictures. You know, I kind of temporarily lost my mind at her this weekend because she started talking about having viewed the film and saying that it was perfectly fine to view it. So I started looking up the federal statutes on that, and it's not. Federal statute says if you look for and then watch CP, then you have broken federal law, and they can put you in the jailhouse next to Jim Bob to Josh Duggar. So anybody that's running around saying that they stopped and watched it has also broken the law. It's a little bit different if somebody sends you something and you see 2 seconds of it, you click off, go, because I've had that happen. I mean, look back at the Nat thing. I had so many porn clips sent to me then, and so much weird things, and signed up to work as a prostitute. I started getting emails from guys wanting to pay me, and I was very squicked out. So there's a lot of that goes around, but the thing is, if you stumble across that, you click it off. You do not seek it out, because if you seek it out and they look and see on your browser history or go into the hard drive and they find that you've looked at it, your goose is cooked. She should be very careful about that. KJ admitted she looked at it. Toss her a job. Amy, I saw that. That's what I temporarily lost my damn mind about the whole thing. I hope we all pray for the jury to see clearly what we are all seeing. I have faith that the jury will find him guilty. I have faith in it as well. If my brother had done this, he would be arrested. I would be arrested for murder. Joy, yeah, exactly. Same here. I told somebody if this was my child that had done this and they were accusing him of it, I would have frog marched his butt to the police station. I would have hired him an attorney, look at him and stuff, but I would have had him turn himself in. I wouldn't be coming up with excuses. I wouldn't say, oh, but it might have been Joshua Williams. It might have been Caleb Williams. It might be the fabulous David Waller's brother. I wouldn't do that at all. No drama. Yeah, Amy, no drama. Yes, Josh was just doing research. Law doesn't sort out who's reporting on it or enjoying it. You're exactly right, Lisa. If they look at who's looking at it, they don't care why you're looking at it. Look what happened with Pete Townsend in the UK. He was accused of looking at it, and he was doing research because, sadly enough, he's another one of us that was a childhood victim of SA. It was his grandmother who was taking care of him for months on end while his parents were working. She committed SA against him as a small child. And he struggled his entire life with that, like many of us do, until we get help and admit it and say, yeah, this happened to me. This happened to me. It's terrible, but guess what? I'm moving on. That's the power when you can overcome that. He was a victim. And it took a while to straighten that out and prove that he was a victim, and he wasn't trying to look at that CP to be all gross about it. My dad would kill my brothers if they did this to one of us girls. I have no doubt. That is a normal reaction. Unfortunately, so do you think Jim Bob does the same thing that Josh does? No. The reason that I say that is he was pre-Gothard, even though religious. He was pretty normal religious. I'm sure he did his own share of making out with girls in trucks and things. He just wasn't the holy Joe he is now. So I don't think that he would do that. Now, I've heard somebody say that Josh must have been molested to make this happen. And I have to say, not necessarily. Not everybody that does this stuff has been molested. There are a great many of us that have been victims of child CP and the CA that don't go on to perpetuate this. In fact, you're more likely not to, from everything I was reading. So I'm thinking that can't believe he essayed one of them while reading Bible stories. I know the stories are terrible. They're coming out, the things that Bobye Holt has said. And I'm going to say this, Bobye Holt is my hero, except that she should have come forward and said this stuff before. Except I will say I'm going to give her a pass because I know what it's like in those types of churches and the pressure put on you to forgive and forget and move on. It's pretty tremendous. I struggle between wanting to kill people and force them into scientific research to find a cure. Absolutely. It is pure evil. And here's the thing. He still thinks he's going to get off. Josh has been raised to believe that there is nothing that daddy's money and Jesus can't buy him out of. Well, sadly enough, there are some things. So he's about to get a massive awakening. Now, I did hear that at one point that they were talking, they wanted to use as the excuse that it happened because of the teachings of Gothard and that because Josh was not taught anything and not given proper treatment when it first happened. He is a very arrogant person. We used to call him Smugger Duggar years ago. It's very brave of her. I'm sure she'll get some backlash of where she is acting. There's regressions in that household. I can only go off what I see. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. I don't know if Pete Davidson was a victim. I really don't. Wind whispers, I don't doubt that at all because we all know from statistics we've seen and stories people tell that in these churches, this stuff is just everywhere. It goes on, especially if you have young boys like that are teaching Bible study. I keep reaching over because I'm bleeding. I don't know how that happened. And other stuff like that. He was involved with a lot of things with the church. For a long time, the Duggars did the home church thing. So there was less likely that was going on with other kids there, but you just don't know. I'm looking to see in the future an avalanche of victims coming out of the woodworks to tell their tale of what happened to them because of Josh, because they'll know they'll be believed if Josh is convicted. I'm looking for that to happen. I don't want it to happen. It's terrible. Sadly, won't be put in Gen Pop due to his notoriety. So no prison justice. He'll be put in protective custody. I am not 100% sure on that. I've been doing a little reading, trying to figure out what's going to happen with the prison situation. I thought I had read that the feds were putting people in, they were putting these kind of guys together and not letting them near Gen Pop because so many of them were dying at the hands of the other prisoners. But it doesn't appear that federal prison has separate housing for SA. So he probably will go into some kind of prison with a Gen Pop, and I don't think he'll go into general population. I think they may have to put him in like some type of solitary. He needs to have the word pedophile tattooed on that large piece of real estate above his eyes just before he gets tossed into mandatory general prison population. Well, I think that everybody in prison probably knows who he is at this point, and they're waiting. I don't know if where he's gonna end up in the federal prison system. You can literally get moved anywhere. Oh, please, let Bubba be friends with him and Gen Pop. Yeah, you think about that. I don't take any joy over knowing that it's likely he's going to end up as a victim of SA in jail. He's going to get to feel like what his victims felt like, what his victims felt. And I've said this many a time, I'm going to say it again. The U.S. prison system just needs to be completely overhauled. It needs to be more about treatment and containment and teaching people life skills. I mean, how are you supposed to get out and do anything if you don't even know how to balance a checkbook or something? Do you know how much longer the trial is going to last? A couple more days, I would say. I don't advocate for retribution, but I can't say I'd cry if he got beaten or worse. Same, same, lone wanderer. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. I don't want it to happen, but if it happens, I probably won't cry. Well, wind whispers, those, and I've added some since then. While I was talking to Cindy today, I was adding to my interconnections. I'm going to do a definitive one here eventually, draw it out in the whole 9 yards, because there's a lot of crazy interconnection between all of these families. I agree the prisoners that have a release date should get some type of therapy, but for prisoners that get life sentences, I don't think so. Well, probably not. The ones who aren't violent, they need to be helped, I think. Think about what he looked at. No mercy from me. Amy, no mercy from here either. I just hope that well, I don't know what I think right now as far as him going to jail. I think he will go to jail. I think it'll be bad because this is someone who's used to having his way all of the time. He is used to being told that he is a patriarch. He's a good patriarch, he thinks, and he expects his voice to be obeyed. Personally, I think it should be a law that they all get tats that say, I'm a sick pedo on their foreheads. Well, that would certainly warn everybody for sure. State prisons are less secure and more chance for other prisoners to get to him. Well, he's going away to the federal system. And I know the federal system, they don't play. They lock people down if they think that there's any possibility that will happen. Even a rumor of anything happening, sometimes they just lock everybody and everything down. Chemical castration does not stop your hands or your mind if let's cut off his appendages. Oh, that's going a little far. Are you worried that if he doesn't go straight to prison, he will take it out on Anna? Well, I think he probably already does take out himself on Anna. And I think she doesn't know any better. So she probably thinks it's pretty normal. Yeah, he probably is toast at this point. No, I don't wish for Josh to be harmed in prison or anyone. That's bad for everyone, for society. Belinda, I agree with that there. I want him to serve every damn day that they give him once they do a conviction. Because I feel very likely he's going to be convicted, but who knows what happens, because I've been known to be wrong on a number of things. But I think he's going to be convicted. I think that he's really going to go down this time. Now, will he get the maximum? Probably not. Will he get the minimum? Probably not. It's probably going to be just like what happened with Jack Shope. They'll get something in mid-range. And while that's not enough, if he gets out and those kids are still under the roof, he won't be allowed to go home again. He won't be allowed to live with his family. I have a feeling they're going to, at that point, if Anna is still around, and I think there's a possibility she may wake up and realize just how bad this was, considering she ran out the other day. I don't know. I don't think Josh's mental health will hold up that well in prison. I don't think so either. He has never been made held accountable for his actions, never. And he's going to a place that is all about accountability. Yeah, she probably does. There will be no conjugal visits. The feds don't do conjugal visits. That's not part of the Federal Bureau of Prisons thing. Look for the max. I know. I think that they're going to ask for the max. Whether they'll get it or not is a whole different ballgame. Depends on the judge. I want him to get at least 20 years, so even his youngest child will be an adult and hopefully out of the house. Any time would be a shock to him. Poor Joshy. Yeah, poor Joshy is not going to have an easy time of it at all. I think it's going to be a shock. When my ex was a jail correction officer, he told me that if a man was arrested for SA of a sister, they would tell all the inmates. I've heard that too. I've heard that said. Very few prisons still allow conjugal visits. Oh, wow. Jill did not testify today. It was Bobye Holt testified, and she said that Josh had been doing this for years, that she knew for a fact that Josh had been doing this for years. She really put it out there. Jill did not testify. The prosecution rested. So we don't know if Jill is supposed to testify for the defense or at the sentencing or at what point, or as a rebuttal witness. All of those could happen. Who knows at this point? It's also a possibility they just didn't have to call her. They had already put the nail in the coffin and they felt like they didn't need to, because getting a child to get it, well, she's an adult now, an adult child to get up on the stand, look at their abuser and talk about their abuse is a pretty horrific thing. It is kind of soul destroying. So maybe they didn't. My friend Cindy, her husband was supposed to testify in a big case. They ended up not using him. Sometimes that happens if they feel like they've either screwed up too badly to ever recover or they feel confident. And I think they're feeling confident because Bobye Holt just handed them everything on a platter today, as far as I'm concerned. He said they know who's coming before they get there. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Why didn't anyone do anything about it at the time? This sickens me. Because they were using the Bill Gothard method. And in Bill Gothard's world and in Jim Bob Duggar's world, he said this before. He said that what Josh did to those girls was no different than what happens in so many other families in their group in Quiverful, that this type thing is very common. So he minimized it. He brought out the victims to excuse it by putting them on Megyn Kelly's show. You know, they're trying to sue and say that the city released who the names were. No. The first we even knew who the victims were, besides being able to count up on our fingers, knowing the ages of the kids, was when Jim Bob Duggar himself said that Jill and Jessa were victims. That was the first time we had an actual confirmation of a name of who victims were. Like my family, it's normal. What's the problem? Yeah, that's pretty much the way he thinks. Do you think some of the smugness is because daddy's money will pay for legal protection on the inside? I don't know. I think that if Josh loses, daddy will stop protecting him because he becomes a blot on their copybook at that point. He can't help them at all. He just hinders them. So you might see the entire family distance themselves from Josh, even Jim Bob. I mean, look at this. He hasn't spoken about this son. He spoke at the motions hearing, and it was just ridiculousness. Bobye Holt throwing serious shade at Jim Bob and her sister. You don't forget something like that. Yes, exactly. There are some YouTube funny commentators that say we should never call the law on them for the way we see the children being treated, but they're in a closed society, so not us, then who? I don't know. I think if you see that sort of thing going on, you have to say something. You do. My parents had 10 kids and no one was M'd or R'd. Jim Bob is a liar. Well, he is that too. Not always when sleeping, and it happened over the course of years, according to Bobye Holt. She said today on the stand, it happened over the course of years. It was not a one-time thing. It was a serial event. I'm sure they do have all the rundown on the trial. I myself spent half part of the day on the beach, so I didn't get to see everything. I did get to read about everything Bobby said, and I'm looking at the ridiculous notion that the router has anything to do with it and the things they're saying. I did find it interesting that Jim Holt said that he and Josh had a conversation about doing the dual boot thing where you have something like Ubuntu or why am I not able to call it the other one? The other one. Like Lexus, Linux, and then have a Windows side. They had that conversation about how you partition a hard drive too. So he's been thinking about this for a long, long time. Jim Bob doesn't have an unlimited amount of money. This trial is costing him big time. Plus, it has to be hurting some of his businesses. I'm sure it's hurting a lot of his businesses. Joy, sadly, they covered it. I can't see Jim Bob dropping Josh after conviction. He's a golden child after all. I guess we'll have to see. He was so foolish for not taking the plea deal, knowing that all of his information was going to come out in the trial. Melanie, I think he probably thought that it would not come out in the trial and that they would just go away. He might think his family is normal according to what he's familiar with, but they all need serious help. No kidding. Covenant eyes is the biggest joke out there. I hate to say it. It only works if the person primarily using the computer is not doing a dual boot and not using, a partitioned hard drive. There has to be some honesty up front. And the people that you're trying to track are not known for being the most honest when they're using Covenant eyes. I've told the story before about our old church where the guy who had the biggest porn habit decided that he wanted to start watching everybody's porn usage by installing Covenant eyes on all their computers and being their accountability buddy, and how that didn't go well at all. I hope this affects Jim Bob's run for state senate. If no one votes and no one runs against him, I wonder what would happen. I don't know. Yep, that's exactly what he was talking about. Jim Bob has good people running against him. I don't think he's going to win. I don't think so either. I think that there are enough people in his part of Arkansas that are just sick to death of the Duggars and their attitudes and how they think they're better than everybody else because Bill Gothard has told them that they are better. And then everybody else is some kind of lowly mud person or something, that this is not going to play well. Josh is a narcissist. Yes. They refuse to see they are ever wrong. That's why he refused the deal. Josh only believes what comes out of his mouth and expects others to do the same. That's because that he's taught that. That is what Bill Gothard teaches. The husband is the absolute ruler and the wife has no rights or opinions or anything. You're supposed to smile and stay beside the man, which just makes me laugh. How can anybody be happy about that? This is all so sad and makes me want to vomit. Jessica Day, you're right. I just want to skip to the end. We get sentenced. I'm get super sick to my stomach when I think too much on this. So am I, Will. Oh, so am I. I'm glad to be a craven heathen if this is what their version of. But here's where it gets really funny with all of this. And it's sad and sick and horrible all at the same time. Jim Bob really thinks, because of what he's been taught with Gothardism, that he has rights over everybody else who's not following the same kind of fundy town stuff that he is. Type, yes, the lone wanderer. I have heard that so many times from people from that part of the world that he begs for discounts, he dickers, he doesn't tip, tips almost nothing, super cheap. I've heard all of those things applied to him. He should get 40 years and a $100,000 fine and put the money to families who've suffered SA and need counseling. That would be, in a perfect world, that's what would happen. Tip $5 for 5 people. That sounds about right. That sounds like him. That sounds so much like the Jim Bob I know of. And I still remember the time that they filmed for the show. They filmed a segment where they were giving out groceries at a thrift shop. And the families were very blessed and everything. And as soon as they got out of the door, they were having to give the groceries back. It was set up just for the show. It was not a real grocery giveaway. Old Jim Bobby, ain't he cute? Ugh. You could say that, Mr. Helmet Hair. I wonder if he tips and tracks. That's a good question because a lot of them do. And it's just disgusting when they do that. My prediction is all the trial testimony will be done on Thursday. I think jury will have a verdict by noon on Friday, and they will be done. I don't know if they can be brought up on charges. I don't know if Jim Bob and Michelle can be brought up on charges and made responsible for this because they really they created this monster, but they created this monster over some years. Now, can Jim Bob be brought up on charges for lying during that motions thing? Maybe. That might happen. I would like to see about that. I'm serious about the groceries. That's what they did. That's what they did. It was awful. Jim Bob would be too. Yes, he would be in a perfect world. And speaking of a perfect world, I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm going to try to make cookies again instead of these sad burned things that came out of the oven. And I've got a tree to decorate. We may be sweating here, maybe in the 90s here, but it's Christmas. So all of you go hug your loved ones and be very thankful that you're not dealing with having a Josh as a son. I cannot tell you how happy I am that we got out of that. Maybe they can be brought up on charges for not reporting the assault of their daughters, not hindering evidence, and child endangerment. Oh, no. I just got my hair clipped up. I went to the beach today for a long, long walk. My husband's newest diet goal is to walk on the beach for an hour or so every day. So I got so gross and sweaty that I just came home and took a shower and I washed my hair and it takes forever for it to dry. So it's clipped up right now. So there's that. And tomorrow I'm back at the beach and walking in the morning. So I won't be able to watch the updates on the trial until much later in the day, just like today. It is very thick and glossy. Unfortunately, it's too thick. And in this heat, it's like a pain in the ass to deal with. And part of me is like, I need to cut my hair off because that's what Bill Gothard likes in women is long hair. I wish you were here too. And we could craft together. Paper crafts, not yarn though. I haven't tried paper crafts. Recently I tried to do watercolors and I've been somewhat unsuccessful with that. And pour painting, which I've never tried before, and it's not going well. Not going well at all. Okay, you guys, have a good evening. Thank Jesus that none of you have Josh as a son. You're not in this hot seat dealing with this hot mess. And it's breaking my heart. Today I had so many people calling me that was telling me how broken they hearted. Cindy was crying on my shoulder about this. And if you need a complete compendium history of the Duggars, I have a link in my description with Cindy's breakdown of the Duggars and everything that is going on. Stay blessed, everybody. Amen. Goodbye and good night. Cindy's breakdown of the Duggars and everything that is going on. Stay blessed, everybody. Amen. Goodbye and good night.